delighted to be able to join you today because it's a beautiful day out there. The sun is bright, the sky is blue, there isn't a cloud in sight, I have to say. It is really quite spectacular here in London. It's a little bit on the chilly side, but there's a big storm coming apparently, and who knows when that will wreak its particular havoc on us. But let us talk now to our good friend Belinda former Brexit Party MEP, of course, and now having achieved victory by leaving the European Union, basking in the glory of it. Belinda, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Lovely to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you very much indeed. I stayed up extra late, because now normally it's time for my cocoa at 11 o'clock. So, but I was quite pleased actually that the interview came to a blessed end before 11 o'clock, so I could get into bed. But I sat there thinking this is actually possibly the worst interview I have ever seen. Oprah Winfrey didn't ask one question that was in any way challenging, didn't really challenge anything that was being said. But what I've taken from it, because we talked about this a lot yesterday, it's not so much what she said and what she's alleging and all of that, but it's the effect that what she said is having on some people who are beginning to think that actually she's right, that somehow this is a very unwelcoming, racist country, with a racist press and a racist royal family. And I just don't recognise that.
No, neither do I. And let's be honest, of course there are racists in the UK as there are, everywhere around the world, and we need to tackle them. But the idea that the UK is a racist country is absolutely ridiculous and really inflammatory and does need to be challenged. But look, the reaction to this interview in America is so ridiculous. It's so hysterical. And the idea that the monarchy is now under some sort of threat is just absurd. I mean, our monarchy is one of the most resilient institutions in the world. Our queen and her family are directly related to William the Conqueror, and they have suffered centuries of, plagues and wars and beheadings and murder and scheming and plotting to take them down. And it has never worked. Even when we became a sort of republic under Oliver Cromwell, the British people begged for their monarch, Charles II, to return to England. We love our monarchy in this country. The Queen has over a 74% approval rating, and William and Kate have over 64% approval rating. Any president would dream to have that kind of support. So I'm really not worried at all that our monarchy is in trouble whatsoever. Sibling rivalries throughout royal families have always been very tense, with the heir and one seat of power. I mean, look at King Richard III. He killed, allegedly, his brother's children, and then in the Tower, the princes in the Tower, and then he had Elizabeth I being put in prison by her sister Mary, Bloody Mary, and then when she gets out, she chops off her cousin's head, Mary, Queen of Scots. Family relations have never been brilliant in royal families. So.
No, I think you make a very good point. But, the thing about America as well is that, they don't have to look very far down Main Street, USA, to find some racists, because, the racial divisions in the USA are far worse than they are here.
Far worse, and this point really does need to be made. I think, one of the reasons a lot of mixed marriages work and are so common in the UK compared to other Western European countries is that the level of tolerance is so much higher. I do think that's got something to do with the Commonwealth as well. I think we all feel like one big, giant family. The Queen says it's a family of nations, and we do have these strong connections to all these different countries all over the world. And we're a very diverse bunch, but we're diverse under one flag, and as British as the next person, doesn't matter about the colour of the skin. Look, Mike, I think it's about a culture clash. Yeah. This race issue that keeps getting forced down our throats, I think it works very well with a certain section of the American audience, the very sort of sensitive, sort of kelp drinking, terrified of anyone who eats gluten, that kind of fragile group of people. I think it works well with that, but the Brits are just not having any of it. And I don't think the little dip that the royal family may suffer now is going to have any lasting effect whatsoever. I just feel very sad about the interview.
I think a lot of people do, actually. I was listening to Simon Jenkins, the former Times editor, talking this morning, and he said the same thing. He just didn't really buy what she was selling, didn't really believe any of the stories and questioned all of them, but also said that it made him feel generally just rather sad, because it is sad to see people being quite so eviscerating in public about members of their own family. I mean, it's laughable that these guys say that they want their privacy, and yet here they are stripping bare sort of emotions and facts and pieces of information about their own loved ones that we have no business knowing about.
I know, I think it's quite hurtful in a way, because when Meghan came on the scene, the country celebrated the idea that we were going to have this incredibly glamorous, beautiful princess that brought in, ladies of color into the family, and it was celebrated. I had a huge party at my house. Family relatives came. We all had balloons with Harry and Meghan's face all over it. I've still got flags of Harry and Meghan on a Union Jack in our garden. So it wasn't that we rejected her, but I think after a while, when there was certain sort of preaching elements, hypocrisy, flying around private jets and preaching to us about climate change, these sort of things don't sit well with the British people.
No.
We like the sort of resilient, stiff upper lip, devotion to duty type people, that we respect them. I think the preachy sort of woke lot don't work well with the British people. I think that was the problem. I don't think we suddenly turned on Meghan because of her race. I think that's a very sad accusation.
No, it's a complete nonsense, because clearly if that had been the case, one, she would probably never have married into the royal family, because the word would have gone out, supposedly, from the heads of the family. I mean, it makes it sound like a mafia organisation, doesn't it? To say that, this is not going to happen. If that was true. Similarly, if this country was such a racist country, why was everybody celebrating on the day that she got married? People, hundreds of people, thousands lining the streets of Windsor. All of these celebs came in. Suddenly, also, she keeps winning lawsuits against newspapers. And I mean, if the judiciary is anything to go by, surely she would accuse them of being racist, but they keep awarding her victories against Associated Newspapers. And you just think, this is all deliberately being done. I don't think she means to damage Britain. I think she just means to play the victim.
Well, I think, unfortunately, as I've said, this interview has triggered a wave of hate towards our monarchy and towards the British that I don't think they planned or foresaw. I really don't think they're very self-aware. And that's very sad that we now have to fight off again. But then again, Mike, we had it for 4 years over Brexit, the global reaction to how awful and racist and insular and little Englanders Britain had suddenly become because it wanted to leave the EU. Hillary Clinton, the usual suspects coming out and praising Meghan in the interview were the same ones, slating Britain in 2016. So Britain bashing is very common, and luckily I think the British people have enough confidence in ourselves not to be too wounded by all of this, because we're very happy where we are. I'm very happy we don't have a president. And the racism card, it's a shame, because Meghan did have some valid points. I think it must be extremely hard to join the royal family and suddenly be a victim of hounding. And whatever you can say about Meghan, that wouldn't be easy for any of us. I know, and Mike, people in the press, and when horrific articles come out about them, it can be quite wounding. And she had some points that she could have made, but to accuse the royal family in such a general way and say that one of them has said a racist thing but not naming them means that the whole family gets stained with that brush without any way of defending themselves. And I think that was unfortunate, really was.
Yeah, I'm not convinced at all that whatever the remark was even a racist remark, if there was such a remark, because first of all, it seems to be being reported in different ways. She says there were many conversations. Harry says there was one. He says that he was told about it by somebody else. Other people say Harry heard it himself. Nobody's really very sure of what was said anyway, regardless of how it was interpreted. But do you feel a bit sorry for him? Because, he didn't look yesterday like a particularly happy guy. He didn't look as if he wanted to be there. His body language did not suggest that he was comfortable really talking about some of the stuff that he ended up saying.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I've always been such a big fan of Harry's. I will never forget the service he did our country. Anyone who fights in our military and risks their lives in that way, I will always have their back. That's just how I am. And I think both boys have been through so much in their lives. We've got no idea of the inner turmoil they're going through. And that's why I think it is really sad to see him so unhappy, and to see Meghan so unhappy. But what's even worse is that it has distanced them even more from us. And I quite like the idea of them coming home eventually and being welcomed in open arms and us moving on from this. But but I think it will take a while now, unfortunately.
I don't think it's ever going to happen. In fact, I wonder whether he can even now come back in the summer, because people are really not very happy about him and what he said and how he's thrown his entire family and his own country under the bus. And I mean, I wonder whether he can stand at the unveiling of a statue of his mother next to his father, who apparently doesn't take his calls. I mean, it's not clear whether he started taking them again, but certainly wasn't taking his calls for a long time. He's admitted there's a lot of trouble there that needs to be sorted out. I mean, I just can't see the happy family sort of getting back together in June or July for this very happy occasion. It'll be awful.
Maybe that's too soon, but he did, I think sometimes people do desperate things when they're feeling desperate, and I don't feel I can judge too much if I haven't walked in their shoes, but I do think airing dirty laundry and private family matters in public is never good for anyone. It doesn't give it, who gains from this?
No.
There's nothing positive that's come out of it. But on the other side of the coin, I do see, if you take away how we're all feeling about this, for a young man, in his mind, he was protecting his wife and the mother of his child by taking them away from the UK. And that's surely only an admirable thing. Now, the way in which it was done and further, ways they conducted themselves, that's all up for discussion. But that in itself was an act of wonderful protection that a man had for his family. And I do think people see that. And obviously, if he's talking to the Queen a lot, he said in the interview, I think, that he's talked to her more in the last year than he has done, in decades, then clearly that bond is still very strong.
But I'm sure she must be very sad at what's happened, though. And unfortunately, as many as people will accuse me of being some kind of misogynist, this woman has come into the frame, caused a massive amount of trouble, and now look where we are. And I don't really think, in a way, you can blame him for being taken in by her, but there's only one figure here, which is the disruptive figure. And regardless of what people may say to me, it's obviously Meghan, isn't it?
Well, I think, again, it's about the sort of American-California culture clash, and it looks like Meghan has stayed strong with her roots. And of course, over there and in many pockets in America, victimhood is akin to how moral you are, and it's about feeling righteous. The more points you have as a victim, the more righteous you are, and the more platform you have, and sympathy is now currency. So that is what I think we're finding it hard to swallow. But my goodness me, she's a very beautiful, smiley woman who's keeping one of our princes very happy. And, I always like looking at the good in people, Mike. Always like
Well,
seeing
you're a better woman than I am, I have to say. I mean, it's a bit like me walking into talkRADIO one day and going, look, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to do what I want and everybody else can get lost, right? So I fancy doing a couple of hours of a show during breakfast. How about that? Why don't I do that? What do you mean you're ignoring? Why are you ignoring me? You can't ignore me. You cannot silence me. I must have what I want. And that's effectively what she's done. She's got into an organisation, which is an organisation. It's not just a family, which has, various different responsibilities, which are shared out between them. I mean, imagine, for example, how, I don't know, William and Kate's kids are thinking about this.
Yeah, I think it is hard for them as well. Hopefully they're still watching sort of CBeebies or going out rather than, I don't really have like the BBC or Sky playing on in my house when the kids are around for a reason.
Quite right too.
But yeah, I think it is damaging and very sad. But what are you going to do? We have a terrible situation. I do think the royal family have a right to defend themselves, and I do hope in some way they do.
Because do you think they will?
I think one of the members will come forward. I do think someone has the right to defend themselves on the racist claims, because it is such an accusation with so much gravitas, that to just kind of let it hang in the air without any of them being able to defend themselves, I think is pretty unfair. So one of them does, I think, should come out and say something, but they should rise above it. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I don't feel in any way, attacked or like we're under threat. I mean, we're talking about America here. They kicked out our royal family, in the late 18th century and have been dying for one ever since. And now they have their own little sort of micro, if you like, royal family to play with. And they're the perfect sort of Americanized royal family now. And good for them. And that's going to fill lots of TV screens. We will get on with our country, our traditions, and we'll hold on to them dearly, because we know it's the best way to have a country, to have a head of state like our Queen, and then have a prime minister. We're never going to get rid of the monarchy, and therefore, what's all this about? It's just a blip.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Because I think, as you say, there have been many, many more attempts to ruin the royal family than this, and they're a very long way away. And I think, actually, when you look at what they've said, there's hardly any substance to it anyway. I mean, it's literally like, Kate made me cry, and somebody said something to Harry about something somebody else said. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I take issue with the made me cry thing a bit, because I think it's, she made me cry. No, well, you cried, and that was your response to something.
Yeah. I mean, I cry at the end of The Deer Hunter. I'm not going to sue, Michael Cimino, who directed it.
Yeah, I do think it was unfortunate as well that Meghan said that she had to Google the national anthem as if that was something awful. I think if anyone was marrying into any royal family, I think there's about 35 left in the world, the least you would do is research their culture, their traditions. I would take that on myself to want to pay respect to the family I was joining. So, I Googled the American national anthem loads of times because I love America and I love singing it.
Well, you know what? I mean, I was told by a source that I cannot reveal that any woman worth her salt in this day and age Googles any bloke that they're going out with.
I mean, I'm so pleased I escaped that generation because I don't think I'd be married.
Well, maybe what the Googling should have been doing, Harry should have Googled her before he thought about marrying her, and maybe he wouldn't have done it.
Unfortunately, the problem with saying something like that is it's so unbelievable that it tainted all the other claims she made. And as I said before, she probably had some valid claims about how difficult it is joining the royal family, and that the royal family do need to learn how to really support newcomers. They should have learned from Diana. I mean, no one is perfect here, but we never expected our royal family to be perfect. We know how dysfunctional they are. History has it in all the history books. The fact that, perhaps she didn't know how dysfunctional royal families can be, must have been a shock to her. But my goodness me, we've had all sorts of love children, love affairs. The marriages in the past were not exactly faithful ever. And so we're used to it here. So maybe there is a bit of, I just think we're a bit thicker skinned over this side.
I think so. But I also wonder, and I'll leave you alone very shortly, Belinda, but I also wonder how Oprah Winfrey can justify all these invasive questions to Harry about his relationships with his family members, and not one to her about her father, who appeared on GMB this morning, who clearly still is very pained by what she said. She referred to him as having lost him. Well, no, you haven't lost him. You just lost his phone number. You don't ring him anymore.
Yeah, well, I would have loved Oprah to have really been quite vigorous, because I am interested in their side of the story, just because I hate a feeling of disliking anyone without knowing them. And I think this is the problem with today's age. People are so quick to hate. And also a problem with their interview. I mean, we now have millions of people hating us, and the EU are going to have an absolute field day with, Brit bashing again. So that's what I mind, is this quick to hate judgment of people you don't know. And Oprah could have done them a favor by being more rigorous and fair with the questions, and possibly suggesting, why was it that, when you were suicidal, that you didn't have other means of going privately into having some support, rather than just, asking HR and things like that. But again, I don't know. I wasn't in her situation. I just hope for the two of them that their vent has been therapy and they can move on, and our royal family has a chance to defend themselves. And I tell you what, Mike, Kate and William will never be so popular as they are now. The British public, I think, will take them under their wing of protection and feel very strongly that they're very loyal to William and Kate now. So I think it will have done them a world of good in the long run.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Great to talk to you, Belinda. Good to see you. We'll be all out and about again soon, so we must try and have lunch or dinner or drinks or something or other. Belinda de Lucy, former Brexit Party MEP, there defending the royal family, defending the ability of this country to bounce back from these hideous claims made by Meghan Markle, that not only is the royal family racist, but the press in this country is racist, and that this country itself is racist. Absolute and utter balderdash, madam. This is Talk Radio.